Gulf, for liking the live. Appreciate it. Keep liking the live. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Here we go. I'm finding my gap in the traffic. Thank you, Jose. Welcome to TikTok. We're live on YouTube as well. Inspiration Nation. Hello. Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast with both Ryan Boniface, Jose Noya. And Jose, would you like to introduce the topic for this week? I caught him off guard there, look.
We've got Meg on the show, as we know. What was that?
That was like a seamless transfer there with no dead air in between whatsoever.
No, it's good. Meg, welcome to the show. Back to the show for the third time. As you know, Meg's been with us before. It's the third time back. A bit of a life journey situation. And I'll let Meg reveal the subject matter of today's show.
No, this is your podcast.
All right. Well, we're going to be talking about gender, everybody. Talk about gender today. And I think it's quite appropriate to talk about this. And I'm still learning. It's a bit of a journey for me. And Meg's has really helped me with this as well. And I'm really trying my best. And as a father, it's challenging, but I'm getting there. I'm learning it. Well, Meg will be able to tell you how I'm getting on. That's the only person who, Meg will be able to tell you. Better give you the judgment. But I'll just do my best. But Meg, over to you. And how are you doing? How you're feeling about everything?
Hello, everybody. It's very nice to be back. I'm very excited to discuss this. I think it's such a poignant time to be discussing this in the world, and just to highlight like a lot of people in the world that feel disempowered, especially by the way the world is right now. So I think it's super important to discuss it, and I'm very happy to be on here talking about it because it means a lot to me. So yeah, I can ask your questions to open up. Yeah, let's do it.
So Meg, as my child, how did when was it the first time that you discovered that that you were challenging the idea of gender, and how you felt and thought about that?
Yeah, I think I studied sociology when I was in year 9. I took it as an option. I was sort of interested in society, sort of like when you're that age, you're learning about why the world works in the way that it does, and like your place in it. Like everyone's trying to discover who they are. And my sociology teacher in the first few sessions was like, sex and gender are different. And throughout my entire life, you just kind of I had no idea there was a difference. I just thought they were like interchangeable terms. And learning about how like gender is something that like the West have created over time, and it's quite like a colonial idea really of like one or the other. And I think I think I knew I had a tenuous relationship with who I was and how I looked, and I think growing up and realizing more about myself, moving to London and being around a lot of genderqueer people and just people that are super expressive about who they are and why they want to be that is super inspiring. I think when people were sharing their stories with me, I felt like, oh my God, like I've had that exact experience, or I like, that's weird, like I feel like that too. And it was this sort of like, I looked back retrospectively on growing up and how I never felt like there was a box for me, or I jumped from these boxes and just never felt fully sort of in this female box or in this male box. Like I just never I never felt like that. So I guess that's how I kind of it's been a very long journey, but it's for me right now, this is how I feel, and this is how I'm the most comfortable identifying, and I think it makes me feel great, and I think that's the main thing, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Anything from Ryan and Lee? Any questions you wanna pose to Meg?
I just had a cat come and join me in the room there, which distracted me. They have a tendency. I need to fit internal cat flaps on our doors so that it makes life a lot easier for us. Not questions as such, but it just got me thinking. It'd be interesting your perspective on it. As much as I rib Joe for being old, you're obviously much younger than me, who's a little bit older now. But when I was kind of like your age, and in fact probably even older, and out in work for the first time, there was quite clear definitions of what was normal. What is a normal man? What is a normal woman? If you don't like football, if you don't like going down the pub all the time, basically you were abnormal and you were outside the group. And there were these really... And I think as you go back, that was mid-90s. If you go back into the 80s, 70s, 50s, like Joe would remember, I think those things were stronger and stronger, and there was less wriggle room in what that definition of being normal was. And it just... And I say, I'm not a football fan whatsoever. And I used to think life would be so much easier if that didn't exist and that wasn't something you had to be interested in just to be part of the group. And I know it's a bit of a crude example, but there were all these... What defined you as being a normal person. And it feels like the last 20, getting on for 30 years, that's just been completely blown out of the water. And there's far less of a definition of normal now than there was back then. And I think some of those things that I probably felt growing up aren't felt so much by people now. But I don't know if that's replaced by a new definition of what those things are. And it just doesn't appear to be there to me because it's different, or the world is a lot more open now, and actually you don't have to fit so much into those boxes, which is what it sounds like you're saying. But I don't know if it is that free and easy, or it's a bit of a struggle where that all kind of sits right now.
I agree. I think especially, like, I mean, I'm only 21, but like I definitely agree that like these like really rigid boundaries that like were created are slowly being sort of like dismantled. And I think if anything, that's great, because there's less expectation of who you should be and how you should act and why you should act that way. I think like there's a lot of, I don't know, like there's a lot of changing in the ideas of like what it means to be masculine, what it means to be feminine, and freedom to express yourself in whatever way you want, which can only bring positivity, in my opinion, if you have freedom to express and do what you want without feeling this like societal pressure to please everyone around you. I think like that's only a positive. And it's about like having this spectrum of ideas of like how you want to be, and if it's making you happy and it's making you feel good about yourself, like what's the problem? And I think where we are now, I think what was happening was we were like very quickly dismantling these ideas of like what we should and shouldn't be. And what's happened is a lot of people in the world haven't agreed with that and are so stuck in their ways with these ideas of being super traditional, and have decided to create such a hateful rhetoric around it, which is very upsetting. And I think this is why it's super important that we're having this conversation now, because it's, you know, people like me exist, and like we're not pretending that we exist. And yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's easier to be more expressive now, but there's definitely been a lot of pushback that I've noticed anyway.
What's the pushback you've been noticing then, in your experience?
Well, I mean, I identify as non-binary, which means that I'm genderqueer. I don't consider myself a man. I don't consider myself a woman. I feel firmly in the middle, which makes me very happy. And just in the world, especially in places like America and even in the UK, I think there's this idea of no, it's very black and white. Like what you're talking about, gender and sex is the same thing, and all this kind of like, people love to put people in boxes because that's what they think makes things more easier to understand. So when, for example, people see like people like me exist, it's like, what? Like, how does that make any sense? And so they'll try and put me into a box, or be like, but you dress this way, so you must be this, or you sound like this, so you must be. Do you know what I mean? And when people don't understand, or maybe that's the wrong word, but when people discover something that was previously unknown to them, people get scared and immediately sort of retreat and be like, no, well, it's like, don't fix it if it ain't broke. But the problem is, it is broken. So, like, we do need to fix it. And there's a lot of what I've noticed, especially, I mean, where I go to university, it's this incredibly open and diverse place, and I adore it. But as soon as I step out of that London bubble and came home, or moved to Norway, for example, like it's very different. It's very, you just get abruptly sort of shown to the real world, where people are scared of the unknown, so immediately they'll just jump to a lot of people blame the internet or blame younger generations, all these things, but I don't agree with that. I think if people are happy and being expressive, that's all that matters. I hope that made sense.
It did. You've answered one of the questions I was going to ask you, which is whether that pushback varies based on where you are, which obviously you said there absolutely it does, based on, I suppose, how more cosmopolitan places are. Definitely. Potentially.
It's weird. Like I mean, where I am in London is, like I said, super diverse and expressive, but you could travel like 20 minutes on the tube to another part of London and it would just be totally different. Like, it's really strange, but like it's super interesting seeing that. But again, like the same reasons people always use for people always use this term gender ideology, or like the queer agenda, and I think it's just like, it's crazy that people think there's this whole sort of like group of people that are like forcing people to question their gender, like all these things, which is just not happening. It's just giving people the freedom to do that if they want to. It's, you know, but yeah, I think it's why not let people express how they feel on the inside, on the outside. I don't understand why people don't want to do that.
I think
that's really good.
Oh, sorry, Kanjay.
Go on, Lee. Go on.
I was going to ask you as well. So this is, to reference start, this is your third visit to the show, as Jose will probably tell you.
Yeah.
I love referencing back to previous shows, but your first time on the show was back when we used to record face to face, which was a long old time ago. In fact, it was back, I've got it here, in May of 2019, so like 4.5 years ago now, which is crazy.
God.
Wow.
Yeah, 30th of May 2019, pre-COVID and everything. And then
oh my God.
The second one we did on March the 17th, 2021, which is still getting on, is over 2.5 years ago now as well, which is quite some time. And obviously both of those interviews were centered on anxiety, which is something you were dealing with at the time. Not saying you're not with it now. Yeah. So things like that change over time. But do you feel like some of this stuff you're now exploring has helped with that, or made it worse, or where does that sit?
Oh my God. Yeah, for sure. I think it's like unboxing a lot of things about like what we were mentioning before about expectations of when we're younger, and like finding ourselves is a super, like, people always go, I'm gonna find myself, but it's so real. It's like it takes us a while to figure out where do we see ourselves, who do we want to be, what's inspiring us, what drives you, what makes you feel sad, or all these things. You're discovering it about yourself, and I think one of the main drives of my anxiety, which is like obviously what we discussed in the previous episodes, I think a lot of it was centered of like I had no idea of like my sense of self, because I had friends that I knew I wasn't like, or there was all these norms and expectations that all these girls who were my friends were following, and I was just very confused. I was like, I'm not interested in any of this. I don't want to dress like that. I don't want to be like that. And just this like constant fear of being seen out of the box. I mean, there's this like silly anecdote of like Dad will remember of my yellow raincoat, and like I'd wear like Doc Martens to school and just dress very differently, and I used to just get bullied about it all the time, because how dare I stray from this box, how dare that happen? And I think that was such a main cause for my anxiety, and growing up and going to college and meeting loads of new people and letting myself be who I want to be is the most liberating thing that I've ever been able to experience, and I think has it doesn't obviously totally like get rid of all the anxiety, but it was definitely a driving factor of like, now I feel so comfortable with identity and who I am and expectations of myself rather than what I feel of what other people think of who I should be, you know. And I know people are still confused and people still ask me a lot of questions, which I love because it gives me an opportunity to be like, this is just who I am, and this is how I feel, this is how I feel in my body. And some people won't understand that, but it's not my job to make people understand. It's my job to help people realize, just be accepting. And just because you don't have that experience, because loads of people in the world will never have my experience, but it's about, and the same way that I won't experience another person's experience with gender, you know, it's totally different, but it's about us being open and accepting and willing to learn. And I think that's like the main thing.
Yeah.
So
we spoke earlier, or Lee spoke earlier, about kind of the norms that he was used to in like the mid-90s, and I'm sure they're not too different to what Joe may have experienced throughout his life, and especially kind of before or around that time as well.
Say the 50s, please. Just say the 50s.
The 50s. But why do you think in the last 20, 30 years it's jumped forward so much? Why do you think? Because obviously, genderqueer people, as you put it, have, you know, they've always existed. It's not as if since 1995 people have just suddenly started to be different to what people would normally expect them to be. It's obviously that people have always been that way. Yeah. Why do you think now in the last 20, 30 years that's now jumped forward a lot? Where do you think that's come from?
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think one of the main driving factors is just the internet. Like, genuinely, I think the internet has given a lot of genderqueer people the opportunity to research and also to interconnect with like other genderqueer people.
It's a platform, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like the same way when like I was discovering who I was, my sexuality, my gender identity, the internet was a huge factor in that, because it's like immense access to other people that have had the same experience as you to make you feel less alone, and like websites and material, blog posts, YouTube videos, all these things that are have exposed the younger generation to just other information that perhaps we weren't as privy to. Like, I guess like back in the 50s well, sorry, no, I know but like there wasn't this access to the internet, even though, like you said, like genderqueer people have existed forever. It's just they didn't have the tools to fully research and feel what that means. So I definitely think the internet, and I think more. Well, I think for me, the university that I go to is very humanities and arts based. I mean, I study music, and I think genderqueer people, creatives, like they tend to be quite creative and more interested in that kind of thing. And I think like I get to do an entire degree on music, which is so cool. And I think more money being put into the arts and things like that has also encouraged people to be more at one with themselves and their identity and fueling creativity. But I definitely think the internet was probably a huge part of that, connecting people, making people feel less alone. Like, because it's quite scary waking up and and feeling like I don't feel like what the world is telling me I'm meant to feel, or like looking in the mirror and being like, oh my God, I feel like I'm trapped in my body. This is horrible. And feeling like you're the only person in the world experiencing that is like a petrifying feeling. So I think having other people like online, connecting with people is like a great thing to be able to. I know it helped me, definitely.
I can see that. I can see why that would be a big difference. Like you said, it's going from something that no one really talks about to suddenly finding actually there's loads of people and we can talk about it, and the awareness grows and everything else like that. But it does seem like, it's been a rapid amount of social change in a period of time, which is only a good thing. But it was almost like odd to be the one gay person at school when I was there. That was how closed off it was to this kind of norm of stereotypes, and that's just rapidly grown. And you said it's almost kept pace with the technology change at the same time, isn't it? I think that's some really good views.
I definitely think like what you're saying is like the token gay in the school, you know, or like the like people would use like gay as an insult and all these things, and like that was used when like I think that's how I learned what gay even meant, because I think I was in like year 5 and like I don't know what was happening, but someone just called me gay and I had no idea what that meant, but I knew with the tone that they said it in, it was a bad thing, you know. And it's like I think it's like you said, it has changed rapidly, which is like what you said.
Well, it was something that, and I might be off on this. I might be in a bubble where it's not as I think it is, but it was something that really stood out. And I had a friend who was gay and came out to his family, and it was a massive deal for him to do it. Whereas I think it's almost something you wouldn't generally even bat an eyelid at now.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be a point of conversation like it would have been 30 years ago.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it definitely, I think, depends on like where you've grown up or your family or things like that. Obviously, a lot of things can play into it, but I mean, I've been very lucky with like dad and like the family have been like super understanding. They may not really at first understand the terms non-binary and why I use they them pronouns, things like that, but what matters is like the effort for people to understand and like and to be like, I'm never going to experience this, but like if it's making you happy, and like, you know, I think that's super important. But I think coming out for anyone, I think is a huge thing, but I do feel like it's more like it's not as, but again, I don't want to say like for my experience it wasn't as much of a big deal, but for other people it might be this huge life-changing thing. So I don't want to like demean anyone else's experience, but I do think the attitudes are changing, which is super.
And that's a bit, I guess, rather than it not being a thing, is hopefully it's easier for people because there's as time goes on, it just feels like there's less and less stigma attached to things now.
Yeah. I definitely think there is. Like, I think there's, I guess, where I come from now is like there's been this surge, like moral panic around like genderqueer people, like just in like a lot of like right-wing media. It's like crazy. And I think like as much as we're talking about, like, I think there is a lot of good change happening in the world. People are seeing how fast these changes are these good changes are happening. This is great that people are dismantling these really rigid binaries, but a lot of politicians don't like it, and a lot of really traditional people don't like it. So there has been this huge pushback, which I have seen, especially with like the law changes in Florida and like this crazy things that have been happening, which are like putting queer people's lives at risk. And I think that's the scary reaction to it. But I feel like we are heading in the right direction, but there needs to be this. But there's always an extreme reaction when in the opposite end, when there's huge social change. There always will be. But I think it's up to us to continue to learn and support these people that are going through this, and just be willing to learn instead of being so scared about like, what does this mean, or why is it changing, you know? Because I feel like people run and hide and turn to hate when they don't understand or hate change, you know. Yeah,
it's driven a lot by fear, isn't it? I think it's the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah, like I feel like, I don't know your experience, Dad, but I don't know, like when I don't know if I didn't really tell you formally. I was just like, here's the deal. I don't use she for me anymore, please. I don't think it was like this big thing, but I know it was probably big for you. I mean, I don't know what your experience was with that, but I think that you could have made the choice to be totally fearful of it and thought it was like a load of rubbish, but you didn't. And I think that people will jump to that, you know. So it's about not choosing that fear pathway and being open and receptive to hearing about it and learning about it.
Well, I just wanted to be supportive, and as doing these types of shows and bringing these subjects to the fore, really, to get people to focus on it and to say, you know, to support people through this, because it's for you to have said that takes a lot of courage. So, you know, and I want you to be happy. So whatever that is, I'm going to encourage that, and I want you to have a happy life, right? Because that's the whole point. You know, we're not always going to be happy, but you know, we want to have an environment where we have the chance to be happy, and if that makes you happy, then you know, I want to learn as much as possible about it. So that's why I've, you know, embraced it, and I want to learn as much as I can about it. And I'm not always perfect, right? I don't always get it right. And, I always try and correct myself when it happens, because all that time, you know, from you being a baby to now, I've always, you know, used certain pronouns, of course, and I'm doing it. I'm gradually unpicking it, but it's gradually getting there. And I'll always try and support you. So, from my point of view, I think that's right. I think, you know, that's the thing. You've got to. I mean, I don't know how people, if they haven't got that support environment, it must be super difficult. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine being in a unit, whatever that unit might be, and someone says about their gender and then not getting that support. I mean, I can't imagine what that must be like. And of course, that's definitely going to be happening out there. And all I can say to you, Meg, is that I just do my best as your dad to support. And because I think, you know, you're the future, you've got a lot of value to add, and I want this episode to maybe help someone else that's maybe struggling with this.
I think it's super important, like, sorry to cut you off, but I think it's super important to see, like older generations notice this and to speak, like, to discuss this. So I'm super grateful for this conversation, because like I'm very aware that my generation are talking about it a lot and very like actively involved in, like I said, like encouraging like acceptance and freedom to express their gender in what feels best to them. And I think that's incredible. And I feel like what tends to happen a lot of the time is older generations are villainized when they're painted with the same brush of like, well, they don't understand, and like our generation are doing the best. And I think that's not true. I think there's a lot of people, older people that like care a lot about like queer rights, for sure. And I think this is why this conversation is super important, because maybe someone will see this and be like, you know, yeah, people of all generations are talking about this and should be, and learning about it. And yeah, it just makes me very happy that like you're willing to engage in this conversation, because it's like, it's only gonna, no, trans people aren't gonna go away. We're not going away. Like, I'm not disappearing. I'm who I am. And what's important is that we all get accepted and get given the rights that they deserve. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Because always on the podcast, we want people to come away with some actionable stuff, right? So they can take it away. So if someone's struggling with their gender, what advice would you give to someone who's just sort of maybe still kept it inside and wants to sort of express it, but are afraid of doing it? What would you say would be a good first step?
I'd say, just from personal experience, I think I'd say, this is just my personal experience, this isn't just like going whatever, but when I started questioning my gender, I did a lot of reading on on genderqueer people and like how they feel in other people's experiences. And I also would see how I feel wearing different things, see how I'd feel with my hair a different way, or see how I feel if someone called me this or used this pronoun for me, or whatever. I feel like if people are scared to express that kind of thing, I feel like that's when the content online is such like an important thing, because there's loads of genderqueer creators online, and a lot of like LGBTQ plus charities that have advice on this kind of thing. And I was super scared to express how I felt on the inside for a really long time, where I'd overcompensate in like dressing extra feminine and all these things because I felt like I was lacking in some way, and and all these things. So I feel like if someone is struggling, the internet is it can be a horrible place, but there's a lot of really great LGBTQ plus creators that I would just come across randomly, or like an article written, and there's this book that I'd recommend. Am I allowed to recommend a book? Is that something I'm allowed to do?
Yeah,
okay. It's called oh my goodness, I think it's called it's called The Transgender Issue, and it's this this woman that's written this entire book about LGBTQ plus rights over time, and it's a brilliant book. I read it in like 2 days, and it really helped me understand where my place is and how I deserve a place in the world, and that we all equally deserve a place in the world. And that was like a huge turning point for me after I read that book. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Sounds great. Yeah.
But just to find someone that you trust to express this with, and usually if it's someone that you trust and you feel like you're in a safe environment to do so, that's like, I think the first person that I told was my friend from college, and I was like, yeah, this is the deal. So and she was super accepting and open, and that just like, it was the snowball effect of like, I'm just going to tell these people now. And everyone has just been super amazing about it, because it's like, of course you keep people that you love in your life, but it's important that you feel strong enough to do that. If you don't feel strong enough to do it, don't put yourself through something that you don't feel like you're strong enough to do. But yeah, I would definitely recommend that book for sure.
Yes, it sounds like there's a lot of support out there, which is the most important
Yeah.
thing.
And getting involved with queer charities as well, that I definitely did, and pride events are so cool. like it's where I feel most at home, and I just feel like there's a lot of people out there. If you feel like you're on your own, there is so many people out there that will experience so many similar things to you, and are your age. So, and the internet is such a good device for that. There is a lot of shady things online, but
people can connect with you, can't they? You got your own Instagram.
Me?
No,
yeah.
Your own social.
I don't have Instagram anymore.
No,
but
I was just about to say, yeah. But when that's back up and running at some point, or other means, right? You've got your music.
Definitely.
Connect through that, don't you? You connect a lot through that, because there's a lot going on right now, isn't there, with music? Yeah.
Definitely. I think feeling like you're questioning your gender in this climate can be super scary, especially with like the amount of like laws that are being implemented, especially in the States, to just like sort of try and rid our existence. Is quite scary. So of course it's going to be a scary, feels quite scary, but it's important to know that there are countless people that are fighting for change. So like I'm out here in Norway doing it, and I always have been in London, always being out there like trying to, we need change, and that's what my university is so good at, which I'm thankful for. But I think the main point is we all deserve an equal spot in the world, and no one's going to take that away from us. So Yeah, definitely.
Well, we're sort of coming soon to the end, Lee, so I suppose, Lee, you'd be
Going to say those great comments there. Yeah,
up.
I'll have to do my timekeep a bit now. Thank you for coming on again and sharing all that with us and being so open. That was fantastic. Hopefully there's some stuff there that really does help people. So thank you.
I hope so.
I think given our pacing we got into, we'll probably talk to you again in about the summer of 2026. That seems to be about the cycle we got into.
24 years old.
So we'll look forward to your next update then. Are you still doing the music,
Sweet.
by the way? I just wanted to ask you because that was a big talk for us last time we spoke.
Me? Am I
Yes.
am I still doing the music?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've got a new project coming out very soon. So
Exciting stuff.
Where can they hear all this stuff?
wait, say that again. Sorry.
Where can they hear all this stuff, Meg?
Meg Noya on Spotify or any streaming service you use, even the most niche ones. You can find me. Yeah, there's a new sort of folk project coming out very soon that I've been working on over here in Norway. So go and give it a listen. Not the self-promo.
Exciting stuff.
Stream.
We'll stick some links in the
definitely.
show notes as well. So wherever you're watching or listening to this, there will be links in the notes as well. Right, we've got a couple of minutes left, so I'll do our shilling now. So if you like what we're doing, head over to the social media formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, at listen to TOIN, and just stick Jose Noya Inspiration into your Google machine. He's on every platform known to man. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, Friends Reunited. He's on them all. Give him a follow. And on TikTok and YouTube, we will notify you when we're going live each and every week. And head over to inspirationation.org.uk to get your merchandise, mugs, T-shirts, hats, hoodies, stickers, probably some socks, anything we can slap an Inspiration Nation logo onto, we will do it. Right, we thank everyone for listening, supporting the show. Hit that 5-star button.
Just do quickly before we
No, I'm wrapping up. Don't interrupt. Go on, Jose.
I just wanted to shout out someone on TikTok. Anaclastics, thank you so much. Just said you're a legend. You're a legend too for liking so much on the live. Thank you so much, Anaclastics. Appreciate you. Sorry, Lee, you can wrap up now.
Absolutely, we do. That was a great shout out. No worries. Right, so yeah, inspirationation.org.uk, and wherever you are listening, hit subscribe, leave us a review, leave us a 5-star review, tell friends and family, all that great stuff, and we'll be back again next week. All that's left for me to do is count us down. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Inspiration Nation.
Catch you guys later.
Catch you guys later. Come on, Megs, get into it. Come on, Megs.
Sorry, I didn't realise that was a coordinated.